Pressure at the pumps as petrol prices reach a record high. It costs £15 more to fill the average car than it did last year, leaving families and businesses feeling the pinch.
Already had to put my prices up for my business, and I've had to explain to people that petrol is one of the reasons for that.
Also tonight, the national living wage is to rise by 6.6%. But with prices climbing, how much difference will it really make? Remembering Sabina, the sister of the teacher killed last month on love and loss. And
to stand up for the first time in a couple of years, well, it was emotional actually. It was, brought a tear to my eye.
Giant steps, the courage of one man striding back after the Manchester Arena bombing.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. Millions of people battling to make ends meet might well be feeling tonight it's a case of one hand gives while the other hand takes away. The good news is that a rise in the national living wage will be unveiled in Wednesday's budget, and we'll have more on that in just a moment. But for many households, this may well be offset by the price of petrol, which today reached an all-time high. The average is nearly 143 pence a litre, meaning the cost of filling up an ordinary family car has gone up by £15 in the past year. Motoring organisations called it a dark day for drivers, which will hurt many household budgets. Our consumer editor, Chris Choi, has more.
Petrol prices so high, they're making headlines. Drivers now face record costs exceeding even the last peak almost a decade ago. For mum and mobile hairdresser Miriam Lewis, mobility is increasingly costly.
Already had to put my prices up for my business, and I've had to explain to people that petrol is one of the reasons for that, for me to be able to get around and do what I need to do.
Petrol has hit a new record high of just below £1.43 a litre. The price of unleaded has rocketed 28p a litre in a year. It now costs £15 more to fill up a typical family car than it did a year ago.
As usual, the main culprit is high wholesale oil prices. They've doubled over the last year. But that's not the only factor at work on these forecourts.
Earlier this month, garages struggled to get supplies, badly hitting their incomes. And commuting in cars is down, yet overheads are up. And now many petrol retailers have increased the amount of money they take from each litre sold.
Well, some of our members have told us that their electricity bills have trebled over the last 12 months. We've also got increases to the national minimum wage and also national insurance looming. So we've got a double whammy, falling demand and increasing costs.
Last month's switch to E10, a greener petrol blend, has also added upward pressure on prices. And many fear that crude oil costs could rise even further before the year ends.
All the indications are that they will remain high for some time, just because of some of the global uncertainty, some of the speculation. So really all drivers can do is shop around. Some places are cheaper than others, but also look at slowing down. You can save up to 20% of fuel by changing the way you drive.
Fuel duty at almost 58p a litre adds to the misery of these prices. And then there's VAT as well. But with just days before they host the world's leading environmental summit, government is unlikely to use its forthcoming budget to lower taxes on fossil fuel. Chris Choi, ITV News.
Well, as we have said, the record petrol pump prices came just as it emerged that Wednesday's budget will include an increase in the national living wage. The living or minimum wage for all those over 23 years of age will rise by 6.6% to £9.50 an hour. Now, the minimum wage for younger people will see an even bigger rise, closing the age gap. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan reports.
Workers on the living or minimum wage may feel like the glass is at least half full. A pay rise, albeit as costs are rising for workers like Lee.
It's come at the right time, especially after the pandemic and, the kind of nightmare that the pandemic has been, really.
But employers, especially in squeezed sectors like hospitality, might think the glass is looking a bit more empty.
Give us a break. If you want a hospitality sector and something world class and you can be proud of, give us a break. Stop, look at VAT, please. Look at business rates. They're unbelievable.
But whether or not there are more breaks on the way for businesses, from April they will have to pay some staff more.
We recognise that this is always a balancing act when striking the national living wage and making sure that it's the right thing for both employers as well as for employees. We've given an enormous amount of help to businesses over the course of the COVID pandemic, and that will be a key focus of the budget and the spending review.
For workers over 23, the national living wage will go up from £8.91 to £9.50 an hour, a 6.6% increase worth £1,000 a year. For 21 and 22-year-olds, the national minimum wage will increase from £8.36 to £9.18, a nearly 10% increase. But some of those workers won't feel better off, say Labour.
Even when you take account of this increase in the minimum wage, a worker on universal credit who's just lost £20 a week and has seen big tax rises from the government and everything getting more expensive, they're still going to be over £800 a year worse off. So it's just more smoke and mirrors from the government.
And unless rising pay can be accompanied by workers producing more, it could even add to rising prices.
The hope of government and all of us, of course, is that these increases in minimum wage are accompanied by increases in productivity. Of course, if this just results in firms paying more and then putting up prices because they're not getting any more out of their employees, then yes, that can have at least a small impact on inflation.
So while these wage increases will be welcome in easing the cost of living squeeze for many people, not all of them will feel that their actual spending power has been topped up. Carl Dinnan, ITV News.
And our political editor Robert Peston is here. Robert, as Carl was saying in that piece, there are lots of people who won't really feel this uplift in the minimum wage at all, what with the rise in petrol prices and the end of the universal credit uplift. It is a difficult, tough time.
Yes, well, we've been talking about what we increasingly think of as a cost of living crisis now for some weeks. Now, let's be clear, this very significant rise to £9.50 in the minimum wage will help large numbers of people. But the gross increase of £1,000 hides quite a lot because, of course, when your income goes up, you lose some benefits, you have to pay some tax. The Institute for Fiscal Studies calculates that the net benefit for many people will be £250. Still better than nothing. But, as you say, universal credit top-up gone, petrol going up, gas going up, food going up, and we are going to get a decision from the Bank of England this week about whether interest rates are going up. There are many who think that the increase in inflation that we are seeing will merit a rise in interest rates. And that is not only going to be tough for households, it's also going to be tough for businesses, and it would be tough for the government, because, of course, the government borrows significant amounts. So there is, to put it mildly, quite a lot of bad economic news about.
OK, Robert, thank you. Well, it was also announced today that NHS will receive almost £6 billion in the budget. Most of it will be used to help the NHS tackle the backlog of non-urgent cases that has built up, of course, during the pandemic, although Health Secretary Sajid Javid said he couldn't guarantee they would all be cleared. Just over £2 billion of the money will be used to improve the NHS's digital systems. And Tom Bradby will have a special programme on the budget this Wednesday from 12:15. And moving on now, the inquiry into the Manchester Arena terror attack today heard what the British Secret Services knew about the bomber Salman Abedi. It emerged that MI5 had twice received intelligence that Abedi was involved in terror, but they've dismissed it as criminal rather than terrorist activity. Our security editor Rohit Kachru joins us from Manchester. And Rohit, this evidence was given anonymously, wasn't it?
Yes, this was a senior officer at MI5. He was referred to only as Witness J. He spoke from behind a wooden screen to protect his anonymity, and yet from behind that screen over and over again. He spoke to defend the actions of the agency and its decision not to investigate Salman Abedi during the months, the years before the Manchester attack, despite what the agency knew about him. Witness J said its conclusion was reasonable. Abedi was identified as having been in touch with several known extremists, one with links to al-Qaeda, a second with links to Syria, a third with links to Libyan extremism. Witness J did concede, however, that it might have been a mistake that counter-terrorism police did not question Abedi on his return from Libya to the UK just 4 days before the Manchester attack. The inquiry continues in the morning.
All right, Catri, thank you. COVID news now, and COVID cases fell for a fourth day in a row as the Health Secretary says there are still no plans to activate further restrictions in England. More than 36,000 cases were recorded in the past 24 hours. It comes as 12 to 15-year-olds began being offered vaccines through mass vaccination centres. And the first weekend of enforcement of Scotland's vaccine passport scheme has been an unmitigated disaster, according to the Scottish Hospitality Group. It's calling on the Scottish Government to scrap the scheme after some venues saw a 40% fall in footfall. Proof of full vaccination is required to enter nightclubs and other large events. Now, the sister of the teacher killed in South London while walking to meet a friend has spoken movingly to ITV News about the impact of her death. Jabina Yasmin Islam said what happened to her sister Sabina Nessa 5 weeks ago still hurts inside. A man has been charged with Sabina's murder. Martha Fairley reports.
It was the 29th birthday Sabina Nessa never got to celebrate. And at the park where she was killed 5 weeks ago, her family and friends gathered to remember her. Primary teacher Sabina was attacked as she walked to meet friends at a pub in Kidbrooke, just 5 minutes from her home. And her sister says what happened last month is still difficult to comprehend.
Horrendous, heartbreaking. You just don't feel like this would happen to you. And the fact it has, it's just, there's not enough words to explain how much it's hurting inside.
A man has been charged with Sabina's murder, but her death led to a candlelit vigil as hundreds voiced their concerns over women's safety. And it's affected the way Sabina's sisters live their lives too.
I'm more cautious about what route I take now. We just check up on each other a lot now and check up on my sisters. We are more careful and making sure that we're not out late now because we're scared. I feel scared going out alone.
But even in grief, Sabina's family wanted to celebrate this birthday.
We're empty. That's how it feels. We're four sisters, not three. We'll always be four sisters, even though she's not here.
3, 2, 1. Sabina Nessa!
And to make sure they keep her memory alive. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, the river rerouted to save a village from the effects of climate change. And tributes to the man who became the seventh friend. Stories and more after the break. Join me then. Hello and welcome back. Now, next week's Global Climate Summit in Glasgow will have plenty of unnerving statistics to consider, like the news today about record levels of greenhouse gases. And the impact of climate crisis on people's homes and livelihoods is already being felt. For the latest in our series, Last Chance to Save the Planet, Hannah Miller reports from a part of Cumbria under threat from recurring floods.
Rain that broke records and battered 50,000 homes.
It was frightening. You feel helpless, really.
When Storm Desmond struck Cumbria in 2015, it caused the largest flood in 600 years.
It was devastating for the town. Climate anxiety is very real.
And even after the waters subside, the town of Appleby finds itself on the front line of the climate emergency.
We were really not prepared for it, and that is our flood line.
For Linda, who works in the local charity shop, the threat of similar flooding is an ever-present fear.
Do you feel like flooding happens more and more?
Oh, we worry. I mean, just last week we had a flood alert. Since Desmond, it's just 3 or 4 times a year.
Across Cumbria, they're trying to find ways to cope with extreme rain.
This river will flood and it will spill out onto the floodplain here, which will become essentially a large lake for a time being.
Moving an entire river to slow down the flow of water to nearby properties.
The science is quite good. It has been proven to work.
All your hopes are pinned on this?
I will be watching the weather this winter to see what happens.
It's hard to imagine going to more extreme lengths to protect people's homes than literally moving a river. But even this on its own won't be enough.
At the moment, the world's heading for an increase in temperature of 3 degrees before the end of the century, and the warmer the air, the more moisture it holds. Even a rise of 2 degrees would see winter rainfall rise 6% in the next 30 years, with peak river flows up more than a quarter. After 5 floods in the past 6 years, the town's mayor says attempts to improve flood resilience are a sticking plaster.
If flooding happens on a regular basis and the shops in our main street become too risky to run, then the town might become a ghost town. I would like to see direct action by those people that are going to COP26 rather than a wish list. They really have to start doing something.
As people across Cumbria strive to protect themselves from flooding that devastates lives and livelihoods, what they can't do is take the big decisions that would stop the forces of nature becoming too extreme to bear. Hannah Miller, ITV News.
Look at other news now. And the daughter of a woman who stabbed her husband to death told a court that she had seen him hold a knife to her mother's throat more than 20 years ago. Penelope Jackson, who's 66, denies murder but admits the manslaughter of her husband David. She claims he'd been violent and controlling. Tributes have been paid to 3 teenagers who died in a road accident in Rotherham yesterday evening. Flowers were laid at the scene where their car left the road and struck a tree. Among them was Mason Hall, who turned 19 just days ago. And parts of London's financial districts were brought to a standstill this morning when protesters from Insulate Britain resumed their road blocking campaign. Police arrested 53 people. Some sad news from the world of Friends. The death of the actor who played Gunther, the coffee shop manager, sometimes known as the seventh friend, forever just outside the charmed circle of 6. His love for Rachel forever unrequited. James Michael Tyler had been suffering from prostate cancer, and his passing has brought affectionate tributes pouring in from fans and fellow cast members alike. From the United States, Robert Moore reports.
And there's nobody to hug.
James Michael Tyler was the lovable barista in the coffee shop, one of the veterans of the TV show
Rachel.
Friends.
I was wondering if you'd like to go to a movie with me sometime. As my lover.
His character Gunther had a constant crush on Rachel, played by Jennifer Aniston.
I just have to tell you, I loved you.
Recently, though, the actor shared a far more serious piece of news.
I was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer.
It was an issue he courageously discussed openly on American TV to try and help others.
My goal this past year was to see my 59th birthday. I did that. My goal now is to help save at least one life.
And in his bid to achieve that, and to make sense of how far it was advanced when the cancer was discovered, he urged men to take checkups seriously.
I would have gone in earlier and, would have been hopefully caught earlier.
Stars of the show have paid tribute. Jennifer Aniston saying, "Friends would not have been the same without you. Thank you for the laughter you brought to the show and to all of our lives." And David Schwimmer added, Thank you for playing such a wonderful, unforgettable role in Friends and for being such a big-hearted gentleman. The cast has lost a friend, but his dual role of making people laugh and urging men to be vigilant will not be forgotten.
Oh, very sad, Robert. More there on the death of the Friends actor, James Michael Tyler. England's hopes for this winter's Ashes series in Australia got a big boost today when the iconic all-rounder Ben Stokes made himself available for the tour. Stokes withdrew from Test cricket this summer, saying he needed to recover from an injured finger and to take care of his own mental well-being. And finally tonight, we return to the subject of the Manchester Arena bombing, but this time with a story of courage and hope. Martin Hibbert was badly hurt in the outrage and he was left paralysed from his legs downwards. Now, after long and difficult therapy, he's taken his first steps and wants to climb one of the world's great mountains. As Nick Wallace reports, it might be said he's conquered quite a big mountain already.
Step by careful step, Martin Hibbert is learning to walk again. He's being helped by a robotic exoskeleton, a machine he tried out on his first visit to this specialist rehabilitation centre in Sheffield.
Yeah, did the assessment, did the medical, and then the next thing, it's there ready to jump in. So to stand up for the first time in a couple of years, well, it was emotional actually.
Martin was severely injured in the Manchester Arena bombing 4 years ago. He was one of the closest people to the explosion. Shrapnel from the blast partially severed his spinal cord.
Brilliant.
Restrictions due to COVID have hampered Martin's recovery. But a recent relaxation in travel regulations means his plan to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania is back on.
I want to inspire others that are being told today that they're not going to walk again, that actually, you know, if you think right and you have the confidence to live a life, you can do it. You might need an adaptation, you might need a bit of help and support, but everything's possible just with the right attitude.
Martin was planning to scale Africa's tallest peak in a specialist wheelchair. Now he wants to take the exoskeleton.
To be able to walk to the summit with the people that saved my life would be, you know, they've seen me at my worst, so to see me at my best and to reach the summit, even if it was just a few steps, to be able to do that walking would be, you know, it'd be amazing.
Martin aims to raise £1 million for people with spinal injuries. He says the specialist treatment he's had should be available to all. Nick Wallace, ITV News.
Amazing Martin Hibbert. And that is all for now. Tom's here with news at 10, but from me and all the team here, bye-bye.